Welcome to our deep dive into the Raybearer Duology by Jordan Ifueko.
Yeah, we're going to be exploring a world where magic and politics kind of get all mixed up together.
It's a world full of destinies being challenged and the bonds of family being a blessing and a curse all at once.
It uses these familiar fantasy tropes, like
Yeah.
the Chosen One and magic powers, and it mixes those with some really interesting cultural influences.
And a really complex exploration of power.
Right.
So let's get started with how the magic works.
Yeah.
First, you've got this thing called the Ray.
Right. This really vibrant energy that connects the Emperor to their council, almost like a lifeline.
I was going to say it's like the thing that keeps them all alive.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
can actually see the connection, right?
Yeah, it shows up as these glowing glyphs
Oh, wow.
etched right onto their skin.
Okay.
And it's not just a cool visual, it gives them all these heightened abilities.
Like super strength?
Yeah, strength, speed, even
Nice.
sort of shared consciousness.
So they're like a hive mind almost.
Yeah, like a single unit
Wow.
operating on this crazy synergy.
Okay, so they're really powerful together.
Yeah, but that also makes them vulnerable.
Oh, how so?
Well, if the Emperor is separated from their council for too long, they get hit with this thing called council sickness.
Is that like a disease?
Yeah, it's a pretty nasty illness that really takes them down.
So their power is it's shared.
It is. They are totally interdependent.
Wow, that's intense.
Right. High stakes magic balancing act.
Definitely.
And then on top of the Ray, you have individuals born with unique magical gifts.
You mean the Hallows?
Exactly.
Like Sanjeet
Yeah.
with his crazy healing touch?
You can actually restart a heart.
That's insane.
It really is.
I mean, I wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of that, but it's still pretty amazing.
Right. But what I find fascinating is how these Hallows are really tied to the characters themselves.
Oh, that's interesting.
So Sanjeet's healing touch, that really reflects his compassionate.
Okay. Yeah, I could see that.
And then you've got A Ling,
Right.
whose Hallow lets her influence emotions.
Oh, wow.
Which, comes directly from her upbringing in that cutthroat political environment.
So their powers are like,
Extensions of their personality.
yeah, shaped by their
Oh,
experiences.
exactly.
That makes a lot of sense.
Right. And of course, we have Tarisai,
Our main girl.
our protagonist. Her Hallow lets her experience anyone's memories just by touching them.
Wait, so she can like see their whole life?
Basically,
Whoa, talk about an awesome power.
it is, but it's also a heavy burden. She gets exposed to a lot of pain and trauma.
Through those memories.
Yeah, it's tough.
I bet.
But it becomes a big part of her self-discovery and healing.
That makes sense.
Right.
So we've got the Ray and the Hallows, this really intricate magic system.
It really is.
But now let's get into who these characters are.
Okay, yeah. We have to start with Tarisai, of course. Raised in total isolation.
Really?
Yeah, and with this terrifying mission to kill the Emperor.
Oh, kill the Emperor.
That's what she's been trained to do.
That's a heavy burden.
It is, especially for someone so young.
Yeah, I can't even imagine.
But she was raised to believe she had no choice in the matter.
So who made her think that?
That was the lady, her mother,
Oh, wow.
a powerful Raybearer in her own right.
Okay.
But she's driven by a thirst for vengeance and control.
So Teresa is basically a pawn in her game.
At least that's how it starts.
Okay.
But when she meets the Emperor Dio, things start to shift.
Dio, what's he like?
Well, he's kind, compassionate, and genuinely wants to make the world better.
So a good guy,
You could say that.
but she still has to kill him.
That's the dilemma.
Wow.
She's drawn to his goodness,
Makes sense.
but defying her mother's command.
Could be really bad news.
Yeah, there could be devastating consequences.
Talk about inner turmoil.
It's a constant struggle for her. It makes you think, how do you break free from a destiny that's been forced on you?
Yeah, that's a big question.
It's the central theme of the story, really.
And what about Dio? Does he know about all of this?
He does.
Wow.
He knows about Tarisai's mission, but chooses to trust her.
Really? Why would he do that?
He sees her potential for good, her inner strength,
Even though she's supposed to kill him.
even with all that darkness she's wrestling with.
That's pretty remarkable.
It really is. It says so much about him as a character.
So he's not naive. He's just
Hopeful.
and trusting.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay,
He
so
believes in change,
yeah,
forging his own path.
and he sees Teresa as part of that.
He does.
Their relationship sounds pretty complicated.
It is. It goes beyond just romance.
Yeah.
It's this deep connection of shared purpose, understanding.
They're both fighting for something.
Right, like Dio says. They're beans in a pod.
I like that.
Their fates are all mixed up together.
Okay. So we've got this intense dynamic going on. Tarisai's stuck between her mom and Dio.
Right.
But wait, isn't there another guy?
You're thinking of Sanjeet.
Yeah, Sanjeet, the
one of Dio's council members.
Yes. What was his nickname again?
The Prince's Bear.
Right, because he's all gruff and loyal.
Exactly.
And he's also into Tarisai.
That's right. He becomes her love interest. But Sanjeet is so much more than just that, you know?
How?
He's a real source of strength for Tarisai.
I could see that.
He sees the good in her, even when she...
Yeah, he's like her rock.
Yeah, and that healing touch probably comes in handy, too.
You think? With all that emotional baggage.
That probably doesn't hurt.
But Sanjeet's got his own baggage, too, right?
He does, yeah.
Remember something about his brother?
Yeah, he's haunted by memories of his deceased brother.
That's right.
It's that shared loss that connects him with Tarisai.
Wow.
So he's a healer for others, but he's also on his own healing journey.
That's really deep.
And he helps Tarisai face her dark...
So he's good for her.
Oh, yeah. He encourages her to embrace all parts of herself.
Which must be hard with the lady,
yeah.
Her mom's always looming.
Like a shadow hanging over.
It's gotta be.
The lady is a fest.
Oh, she is.
You understand her pain, the injustices.
But her methods are...
ruthless.
And destructive.
Definitely.
Yeah, she's all about power.
Especially when you compare her with Dio.
Right. He's all about compassion.
It's a huge contrast.
It drives a lot of the conflict, I bet.
It does.
So we've got Tarisai, Dio, and Sanjeet.
The main players.
And, of course, the lady pulling the strings.
But they're not alone.
No.
There are so many other interesting characters.
Like,
Well, there's Kira, the high priestess.
Okay.
She's got a bit of a rebellious streak.
I like her,
And then you've got Minja, the queen of Songland.
Powerful woman.
Oh, yeah. She's got Arit Empire.
Interesting.
And then there's Zuri, the king of Jabant.
Remember him.
He's got his own agenda going on.
So many secrets.
Right. And even Melu, this mischievous fairy guardian.
No, yeah. Melu. He's a fun one.
He's bound to serve Tarisai.
So, a lot of personalities to keep track of.
It's a world full of diverse characters.
Each with their own stories.
And what's so cool is that each character, even the smaller ones, adds to the story.
They're not just filler.
Right. They all have their own motivations and histories.
That makes the world feel so richer.
It does, doesn't it? It's like Ifueko created this truly immersive world.
So before we get into the plot itself,
Okay.
What stands out to you so far?
What really gets me is how Ifueko blends the magic with the political and social issues.
Oh, I see what you mean.
It's not just about having power.
It's about where it comes from.
Yeah, and the systems behind it, the historical injustices.
The real world stuff.
Exactly. It's not just a surface level fantasy adventure.
It's deeper than that.
It is.
Which brings us to the plot.
Right.
We don't want to give too much away.
Of course not.
But we need to give you a taste of what happens. So we start with Tarisai leaving her isolated life.
Right.
And going to the capital, Uluwin.
To compete for a council seat.
It's a classic fish out of water story.
Totally.
She's thrown into this world of courtly intrigue.
And everyone's trying to grab power.
Well, she's fighting this internal battle.
Yeah, with her mother's command.
And trying to figure out what she wants.
It's a lot to handle.
I bet. And she's not alone in this competition, is she?
No, there are other candidates.
All with their own hellas and goals.
Right, and the trials they go through,
Right.
they test their abilities, their loyalty.
Everything.
And you see the ray start to form during these trials.
The connections start to happen.
Yeah, and these complex relationships within the council.
So forming the council is a big moment.
Oh, it's pivotal.
It sets up everything that comes after.
It shows the potential for good, but also the seeds of conflict.
Because they're so connected.
Right, and of course we can't forget the lady.
She's always there.
Always scheming.
And Tarisai's always trying to resist.
Knowing the stakes.
Yeah, the consequences could be huge.
It creates this constant tension.
You're on the edge of your seat.
Totally. You want Tarisai to break free.
To choose her own path?
But the fate of the empire hangs in the balance.
Okay, so before we go any further,
Yeah.
can we talk about the Abiku?
Oh.
I'm still a little unclear on that whole thing.
Okay, so basically, for centuries, the Arit Empire has kept...
With these spirits from the underworld.
Yeah, the Abiku by offering them a sacrifice.
Redemptor children.
Exactly.
What's with the mark?
They're sent through a portal?
The Uruku breach.
Yeah, it's a pretty dark tradition.
Sacrificing kids?
It is. It raises a lot of ethical questions.
Like, is it really okay to sacrifice a few to save many?
Right. What does that say about their society?
Yeah, it's a tough one.
But it's also a tradition that's been around forever.
They think it's necessary.
To protect the empire from the Abiku.
Okay, so how does Tarisai feel about all of this?
She's horrified, obviously. She vows to find another way.
Stop the sacrifices.
Yeah, it becomes her driving force.
Even beyond defying her mother.
Exactly.
So it's a fight against a system that seems impossible to change.
It is a tradition that's been around for centuries.
And she's going up against everyone who benefits from it.
The people in power.
Wow. Tarisai's got a tough road ahead of her.
She does. But it's a story we see all the time.
The fight for justice.
Challenging the system.
Even when it seems hopeless.
Exactly.
And this leads to her going to the underworld.
It does.
Why does she go there?
To understand the
So she can stop the sacrifices.
Right. She has to confront them directly.
That's pretty brave.
It's a test of her courage and resilience.
I bet she faces a lot of scary stuff.
Oh, yeah. It's harrowing.
But she also learns about herself.
Yeah, she confronts her own dark.
And her mother's influence.
It's all connected.
And all this is happening while she's Empress.
That's right. In the second book, Redemptor,
Okay.
Tarisai finds herself as the Empress, a position she never wanted.
But she has to deal with it.
She does. She's dealing with political intrigue, injustices.
And the Abiku?
Oh, yeah. And these new vengeful spirits, too.
What? More spirits?
We're called Ojiji.
Ojiji, okay.
They add another layer to the story.
Sounds like things get really complicated.
They do.
So it's more than just good versus evil.
Oh, for sure. The lines get blurred.
And even the bad guys have their reasons.
They do. They all have stories of pain and injustice.
So it makes you think.
Yeah, who's really right and wrong?
And what the solution should be.
It's not always clear.
Okay, so we've got this epic storyline.
A competition, a fight against tradition, a trip to the underworld.
And ruling an empire.
It's a lot to fit into 2 books.
But Ifueko makes it work.
She really does. She weaves it all together.
Keeps you guessing.
Definitely.
So what's the takeaway for you?
What resonates with me is how it's both epic and personal.
Oh, yeah.
A grand adventure, but also a story about growth and facing your demons.
I like that.
Finding your place in the world.
It's not just about the magic and battles.
It's about the choices we make, the sacrifice.
And the relationships that shape us.
Exactly.
It's a story that stays with you.
It does.
And that brings us to a question for you.
Okay.
If you were Tarisai,
Yeah.
facing those impossible choices,
Tradition versus change, duty versus love.
freedom versus responsibility,
What path would you choose?
it's a question that makes you think.
It does. It makes you examine your own value.
That's what makes this duology so powerful.
It challenges you, makes you confront uncomfortable truth.
About yourself and the world.
If you're looking for a story that makes you think,
And leaves you feeling changed.
the Raybearer Duology is worth checking out.
I completely agree.
So we encourage you to dive into these books.
Uncover those secrets for yourself.
And remember the words of the storyteller.
That enigmatic figure.
Do not ask how many people you will save.
Okay.
Ask, to what world will you save them? What makes a world worth surviving in?
Those are good words to live by.
They are.
So as we wrap up,
Yeah.
we encourage you to keep exploring
Happy reading.
and happy adventuring.
Yeah, it's not just surface level.
Yeah, it's deeper than that.
It is.
And that kind of leads us to the plot.
Okay.
Now, we don't want to give too much away,
No spoilers.
but we want to give you a sense of what happens.
Right.
So we start with Tarisai leaving her isolated life.
Right. She heads to the capital city, Oluwan.
Oluwan, okay.
She's competing to become one of Daio's council members.
So it's like a fish out of water story.
Oh, totally.
Okay.
Like she's thrown into this world of, courtly intrigue and everyone's trying to grab power.
Yeah.
And she's trying to handle all that while fighting her internal battle.
With her mother's command?
Yeah,
Okay.
and figuring out what she actually wants.
Which I imagine is a lot for one person to deal with.
Oh, absolutely.
But she's not the only one in this competition, right?
No, there are other candidates, all with their own, unique hallows.
Of course.
And their own ambitions and the trials they go through. Oh, they're intense.
Oh, I bet.
They test their abilities, but also their loyalty and resilience.
So it's not just about power.
No, it's about character, too.
And that's where you start to see the ray forming
Yeah, you see the connections happening.
and these complex relationships within the council.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
this whole formation of Daio's council.
Wow, it's such a pivotal moment.
Okay, yeah.
It really sets the stage for everything that happens next.
Because it shows.
It shows the potential for them to be good, but also those seeds of conflict.
Because they're all so closely connected.
Exactly.
And then, of course, you've got the lady
Right, she's always lurking in the background.
always scheming
And Tarisai is trying so hard to resist her.
because she knows if she does,
Oh, the consequences could be disastrous.
yeah, for everyone.
And that's what creates this constant tension throughout the whole story,
You're just waiting for something to happen.
Exactly. You're rooting for her to break free.
To choose her own path.
But the fate of the Empire is literally at stake.
Yeah, no pressure.
Right.
So before we go any further,
Yeah.
I think we need to talk about the Abiku.
Oh, yes, the Abbey coup.
I'm still a little fuzzy on that whole situation.
Okay, so basically For centuries, the Arid Empire has maintained peace.
With these spirits from the underworld.
Right, the Abiku.
And they do this by
offering them a sacrifice.
The Redemptor children.
Exactly, the ones born with the mark.
They send them through the portal.
The Uruku breach, yeah.
I mean, it's a pretty messed up tradition, if you ask me.
It is. It really is. You know, sacrificing children, it brings up a lot of ethical questions.
Like, is it okay to sacrifice a few to save the many?
Right, exactly. And what does that say about their society?
I don't know. It's a difficult question to answer.
It is.
But it's a tradition that's so deeply ingrained in their history.
They believe it's absolutely necessary.
To protect themselves from the Abiku.
Right.
Okay, so how does Tarisai feel about all this?
Well, she's horrified, of course.
I can imagine.
And she vows to find another way.
To stop the sacrifices.
Yeah, it becomes her driving force, you know?
More than even defying her mother.
Exactly. It really shows her character.
So it's like,
It's like a fight against a system that seems impossible to change.
A tradition that's been going on for centuries.
Right, and she's going up against all these people who benefit from it.
Who want to keep things the way they are.
The people in power, exactly.
And that's got to be tough.
It is, but it's a story we see all the time, isn't it?
Yeah.
The fight for justice, challenging the system.
Even when it seems hopeless.
Exactly.
And this is what leads her to the underworld.
It is.
Why does she go there?
Because she realizes that to truly understand the Abiku and to find a way to stop the sacrifices,
right,
she has to confront them.
Face to face.
Yeah, it's a real test of her courage.
And her resilience?
And her willingness to face her fears, you know.
I bet it's pretty terrifying down there.
Oh, it's harrowing, but it's also a journey of self-discovery.
Okay.
She confronts the Abiku, but also the darkness within herself.
The legacy of her mother.
Exactly.
And this is all happening while she's also trying to rule as Empress.
Yes. In the second book, Redemptor, Tarisai finds herself in this position she never wanted.
Empress of Aritzar.
But she has to deal with it.
So on top of everything else.
She's dealing with political intrigue, social injustices.
Still dealing with the Abiku.
Of course. And then on top of all that...
Oh no, what else can go wrong?
These new vengeful spirits appear.
Whoa. Like more spirits?
Yeah, they're called Ojiji.
Ojiji, okay.
Yeah, they add a whole other layer of complexity to the story.
So things get even more complicated.
Oh, they do.
So it's more than just good versus evil at this point.
Yeah, it's not so black and white anymore. The lines get blurred, the motivations get complex.
So you start to question who's right and who's wrong.
Exactly. And even the antagonists, like the lady, they have their own reasons, their own stories of pain.
That makes them do what they do.
Right. So you start to think, well, is she really all bad?
It makes you question everything.
It does.
Okay, so to recap.
We've got this epic storyline.
The competition.
The fight against the tradition.
The trip to the underworld.
And all while ruling an empire.
That's a lot to pack into 2 books.
It is, but Ifueko does it masterfully.
She really weaves it all together.
And keeps you guessing.
So, what stands out to you the most about all this?
What I love is how it's both, you know, epic in scope, but also really personal.
I see what you mean.
It's this grand adventure with high stakes.
Yeah.
But it's also a story about individual growth.
About facing your demons.
Finding your place in the world.
It's not just about the magic and the battles.
Right.
It's about the choices we make.
The sacrifices we're willing to endure.
And the relationships that shape our destiny.
Exactly. It's a story that really stays.
It really does. Yeah, it really makes you feel for these characters.
Right. And that brings us to another theme that Ifueko explores really well.
Okay.
The idea of found family.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, you know, Tarisai starts out so isolated. She's really longing for connection.
Right. She doesn't really have anyone at the beginning.
Exactly. But throughout her journey, she builds these really strong bonds.
With people she never expected.
Yeah, relationships that go way beyond blood ties, you know.
Like her council.
Exact. They become her anchor, her support system.
They're always there for her.
They challenge her, they protect her, they celebrate her wins, and help her through the tough times.
It's like that saying.
Yeah.
The blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb.
I like that.
It's a good reminder that you can find family anywhere.
Absolutely. And it's not just, you know, romantic roots.
Although those are definitely a part of the story.
For sure. But it's also the friendships, the mentorship, that shared purpose.
The way they all lift each other up.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful depiction of how love and connection can help you get through anything.
So we've covered the magic system, the characters, and the plot.
A lot of ground covered.
We've seen betrayal and love, bravery and fear, and this constant push for change in a world that doesn't want to change.
Ifueko really packs it all in.
And if we had to sum it all up,
yeah,
what would you say is the core message?
I'd say it's that power can be a dangerous thing.
It can be used for good or evil.
Right, and tradition can be a source of strength, but it can also hold you back.
It's a balancing act.
It is, and ultimately it's your choices that determine your fate.
That's a powerful message.
It really is, and it's one of the reasons the story sticks with you.
So here's a question for you and for everyone listening.
Okay, I'm ready.
If you were in Tarisai's shoes,
Faced with those impossible choices,
tradition versus change,
duty versus love,
freedom versus responsibility,
which path?
it's a tough question.
It is. It forces you to look at your own values.
And that's what makes this duology so good.
Yeah.
It challenges you to confront those uncomfortable truths.
About yourself and the world around you.
If you want a story that makes you think,
And leaves you change.
then you need to read the Raybearer Duology.
Couldn't agree more.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into this amazing world,
Yeah.
we encourage you to explore it for yourselves.
Pick up the books and discover all the secrets.
And remember the words of the storyteller.
Do not ask how many people you will save.
Okay.
Ask to what world will you save them? What makes a world worth surviving in?
Those are words to live by.
They really are.
So until next time,
Happy reading.
and happy adventuring.